and welcome to this episode of the Corporate Escapists TV show and podcast. I am your host, Christine Innes. I am delighted to have the very beautiful Radhika joining me. Thank you for being here, lovely.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh my goodness, we're going to have such a great conversation today. I can just feel it already. And those who know watching the show or listening understand that I get a little carried away. So I'm just going to take a moment and pause, and I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. It's great to be here. So, just a little introduction about who I am, what I do. So, I'm Radhika Lucas. I'm an education and behavior change marketer, and what I help do, and I'm from Content Halo, so a little missing part there. And what I help do is I help people who are high achieving professionals. So, women who put a lot of pressure on themselves to do exactly the right thing and to know it all and have the strategies and, have it all perfect. Basically, break through and find their voice to be on social media or find their voice to be seen, really. And I do that in a way that brings in their lived experiences so that, they can blend their lived experiences and then build their voice before they're ready to find their visibility. Because a lot of the times when people are getting started or either transitioning from, their corporate roles into a new business or transitioning from their established business into the online marketing space, there is this big, as women, we hold a lot of expectation on ourselves to say and do the right thing. And really, it is for me to be able to hold space and enable that, transference of skills, transference of their lived experiences into a custom framework so that they can feel confident with, having their voice and being seen and heard with confidence. So that's a little bit about what I do.
I love it so much. So I say I'm a recovering people pleaser, but I still have that moment where I slip back into it. So everything that you say, I'm like, oh my goodness, that is me. Because I think, especially as women, we never share our goodness with the world. We hold back so much of it because we allow everybody else to shine, but when it comes to us, we don't want to.
Absolutely. And I think that is that whole thing of taking up space. I think as women, we are taught right from, the time we are sometimes, under 5, we're handed a doll, the first thing, right? We're handed a doll, in most cases.
Mm.
And, the subliminal messages that we're fed is that you're meant to be the listener, the caregiver, the nurturer, or whatever, role that you take. So that whole nurturing piece then translates into our workplaces. And, generally speaking, women are expected to say yes to a lot more things in the corporate world. And that's generally how, you place your value. You place your value by saying yes, because you've been constantly fed this rhetoric, unknowingly, subliminally, not with any kind of, ill intention or any kind of malice. You're fed this kind of rhetoric all along your life that, the more you say yes, the more you put yourself last, the better off you'll be, in the sense that you will be more accepted, you'll be better liked, you'll be, whatever you want to call it, right? So there starts this whole cycle of people pleasing, to your point that you mentioned earlier. And I think what happens is when this translates into the business space, we have all of these learned skills that we have acquired, so our backpack, if you were to call it, our backpack is full of these learned skills that we have got. And then what we've got to do is actually, as we go on this entrepreneurial journey, we've got to actually stop and take stock and go, let me unzip this backpack and take out all of this learning. I mean, not all of the learning is bad, but there's some things that have to be unlearned. And I think the process of that can feel extremely hard as adults coming into, an online business space, or really even having a presence and footprint online, because these days anything digital is basically anything that you do online, whether you're on social media or whether you are, meeting somebody online or meeting like this. We're in two separate countries meeting right now. So everything has a digital footprint, digital touch point. And that is when that friction comes in, because all of a sudden we're forced to be who we are, because how else do we shine, right? How else do we stand out? The only way to stand out is being our true authentic self. And I think the big issue that a lot of people find coming into this online space is the fact that no one has actually defined. I think we're still so early in this journey. No one has actually defined what it truly means to be authentic on social media.
Mm,
I think everyone has this, just be yourself. Well, actually, what does that mean? And how does that then translate back to your solutions and to your offerings? And, how do you then bring all of yourself and find your true voice, right? So there
mm,
are all of these things to unbundle and unpack as you are unzipping that backpack and unlearning the things, to take on these new behaviors, new sets of challenges, and new skills that we're taking on. So yeah, and I think, you make a good point there. So I think there's that big unlearning journey that needs to take place.
yeah, absolutely. I think there's also, when you talk about transference of skills too, I think so many people don't realize the skills that they learn in everyday life. Let's talk like as being a mum, or, working in corporate. There's so many skills that you can actually transfer to being an entrepreneur as well. And I think they're so undervalued in like the realistic life. Like, there's so many, I mean, just even having a conversation, if you can hold a meeting, if you can then talk to other mums, or talk to the other parents, being able to hold that is a transferable skill that so many people undervalue.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of people undervalue the intrinsic skills that they may have, either from, being part of a large corporate, for example, or, for example, if they've led teams. Leading teams usually comes with so much coaching that goes, with the territory.
Mm,
And especially for people who have been, especially my audience, who typically, are those higher achieving women, they may have degrees, or they may have, a higher rated position, or, they might be senior in their roles and they've stepped out. Maybe they were a partner at a law firm before, maybe they were a head of HR, for example, or maybe they were psychotherapists, for example, or, whoever, right? So there are many different roles that play a part, but it really comes down to, understanding, well, what part did you play in your
yeah.
corporate life, and how did you help your team become self-led? How did you motivate them, to perform better, so that you were freed up to do the things that you need to do, which is actually that whole concept of working, what is it, working on your business and not in your business. It really
Mm,
comes down to the transference of those skills. So unknowingly, people may already have the skills that it takes, but actually what all they really sometimes need is that framework to meet the market where they're meant to be, where they're at.
mm.
So yeah.
And it's also, for me, I see the connection between the skills that they naturally have is really the authentic side of them that they're actually not even allowing to show up.
Yes, exactly. That's right. All those work stories
Yeah,
that you've accumulated over the years, they can be an absolute superpower.
yeah,
All of those, I did it statements, or I helped
yeah.
statements, right? All of those things go into the making of what will, form that big attraction piece for people. Make people
Mm,
feel attracted to you in the first place, because it's one thing to create content, when you're starting out on, putting yourself out there on social media, for instance. But it's another thing to have that conviction and create an impact,
yeah.
So I think, and I think a lot of people can unknowingly mistake the two. One is just a tool. So creating content is really just a tool. Because you can create content with all kinds of things, Chat GPT, Canva, this, that, whatever, right? So versus creating an inbuilt conviction and what it is that you have to offer, and then
Mm,
wrapping your own authenticity and journey around it, to your point of, all of those acquired skills that they can actually bring into the work that they're doing now.
yeah. Do you feel that the word authenticity is overused or just still not really understood?
I think is just not understood. I think people are
Mm,
shouting from the rooftops. I think that's why there's so much, mention of the word authenticity. But really, what it comes down to is people are still trying to unpack what authenticity looks like
yeah.
within the context of social media. How do you share your story without oversharing? How do you if you've got an inkling of what it is that you would like to offer, but you don't actually have a full framework yet, how can you still put yourself out there and get started? Because it's one thing to say, just get started. A lot of people say, just get started, you'll be fine. But no, people still need those guardrails. And I think those guardrails really need to come from your own conviction that it's something that I think there's so much noise out there that I think people are still trying to piece it together, which luckily I've been able to crack. So
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it so much because I think, look, there's a million different coaches out there. There's a million, different ways that you can go ahead and start a business. Like, I truly do believe that you should just jump in, whether you're ready or not, because look, there's so much you're going to learn anyway. I don't think there's ever the perfect moment for someone to start a business.
mm-mm.
However, I think surrounding yourself with people who can positively influence you on your journey is probably the key aspect to it. What would you say is one of the key aspects when you start a business?
I really resonate with the fact that you said, leaning on the support of people who have already been where you are.
Yeah.
But I think, the key point of difference that I want to make is I think it's important to recognize that support comes in many different forms. And what I have done in my own experience is that I decided to look at the big influencers. The big influencers as I was just starting out, and there are plenty of names out there, right? But then what I decided to do was seek support in the areas that I really lacked in, so that I could do the work that I needed to do. And I oftentimes, when I was starting out, I felt a lot of resistance towards it. So whether it was hiring a technical virtual assistant, for example, or whether it was listening to a podcast, because of an internal narrative of, if I just work hard and do my thing and get things done, that I will actually move forward. But what I have found is that the opposite to be true. So the more I embraced that support, the more I put myself out there, connected with people, shared my stories either in person or online, the better I felt and the more fulfilled I felt about putting myself out there. So I think, for anyone listening in, I think that support piece is crucial. Really leaning on the support of people who are in your ecosystem already. So whether that be a dinner or a hug,
Yes.
or whether it is more business related
Yeah.
things, which will obviously give you those stepping stones to move yourself forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much because I think as business owners, we find it very, very difficult to ask for help because we're like, we've decided to go ahead into business. It's, especially like when you've got a family or, the loved ones looking on or friends, and they're like, you sort of, sometimes you just can't be at certain things because, there's so much happening in your business. And you're like, going,
Exactly.
oh, but I'm the one who did it. Like, I'm the one who decided to start this. So I'm not going to go and ask for help. It's almost like we revert back into being solo instead of actually thinking of the community that's already around us.
Oh my goodness, yes. And you've hit a really good point there, because I think the word solopreneur,
Mm,
which is used quite a lot, can lead people into thinking that they have to be all alone. But that is, the opposite is true, because say if you were in a team in a corporate job, for example,
yeah.
you would have an entire team. You'd have, maybe a marketing department, you would have admin department, you'd have finance, all of that.
Mm,
But when you bring that into your business itself, and look, when you're starting out, yeah, you do have to wear many hats, but it's about deciding what hats you're prepared to wear yourself, and what hats, really recognizing that,
mm,
are the things that I'm going to be doing actually helping me to go forward, or are they actually going to keep me stuck? And do I have to have this, you know, I'm going to be all on my own and suffer in silence, or am I going to actually reach out and be part of a community and feel supported? So, yeah, there can be this myth that, yeah, you have, and I say that because I did that for a really long time. I did that for like
oh,
about a year.
absolutely. Yeah. I even still now, like 5 years into business, I still sometimes like going, oh, well, I'll just do it. And I'm like going, well, I have this like huge community around me. Like I
Yes,
couldn't ask anybody for help. And I know that they would say yes, but you do feel that sense of burden.
yes,
And I think it's a conversation that people need to start. having to go look at your community, actually finding out who's there, because most human beings are givers. They're ready to give something to you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, a lot of people kind of go into this whole, but I've got to be able to articulate exactly what I say just right with the new people that I'm meeting. And so,
Mm.
there's this resistance. I mean, I recently met a lady who thanked me for making her feel so welcome in my networking group, for example, that, it's a local networking group that I host here. And she said that thank you for making me feel so welcome because I was scared of, what I was going to be able to say. And I said, well, actually, if you don't feel like you're in a safe space in a community that you're wanting to be part of because you are taking those first steps to put yourself out there, then perhaps that's not the right community for you.
Yeah.
So, also then being discerning while you are putting yourself out there to kind of go, well, what's going to be a safe, welcoming space for me to be part of as I am stepping out. It's kind of like how I would have put it akin to, say, my teenage son finding his first job. I want his first job to be a great experience because the likelihood of him having those second and third experiences to be positive are going to be reinforced by the fact that his first was great. So, yes, putting yourself out there, being part of a community, but also being very discerning about, if you are feeling that resistance, then to just be picky and make sure that it is going to be a safe space for you to practice your, pitch or whatever. And you don't have to
Yeah.
get it perfect. You just have to get it
Oh,
going, as they say.
absolutely. Absolutely. What is the change that you've seen in yourself on your own business journey?
Mm. I think the biggest change that I have seen, and I'm going to speak a little bit about a topic which I didn't really understand a lot of earlier on. I talked about, recently, even as early as maybe 3 or 4 months ago, the topic of energy came up, and the topic of energy and energetics. And it just seemed like a very woo-woo kind of a term to me at the time. But really, if you condense it down to like laywoman speak, I think what it comes down to is not getting too far ahead of yourself. So basically, if your capacity for, because, say if you have these ambitions of, let's say, having 200 people in your program, for example, right? Like, let's make it something really big. If you want 200 people in your program, then you've really got to think about the energetics that it takes to actually get 200 people in your program, firstly,
Mm.
because there is all of the marketing, all of the, back end tech and everything that goes into actually bringing a massive group together, firstly. And so the biggest change for me is actually slowly expanding my energy field to encompass more and more. And so what that looks like, for those people listening in, is initially starting one-on-one conversations if one to many feels like too much. Initially going into a group of, say, 10 or 15 people in a networking event if 50 people feels too much. Initially, it may be looking for a local networking event rather than a really big corporate networking event where you might feel like you're lost in a number, or it could be that you're hosting an event, an online event with 15 people rather than 150 people, because you've got to expand your energetic capacity to encompass, all that it takes into getting those 150 people on a Zoom, firstly. But then also being able to deliver that, deliver your pitch or whatever it is that you want to say. So I think so it's a long-winded way of answering a question, which is to say that I think the
Mm.
biggest difference that I've noticed in my journey is the gentle unbundling of my energetics, which is to say my capacity to hold space for people who are wanting to come into my world and, have a conversation.
Well, absolutely. I love it because funny enough, I was having a very similar conversation today. It's almost like being comfortable for where you're at right now, and then also embracing all of the things that come into it as well, because that allows you to grow as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it could be the difference between, hosting a 1 day workshop versus hosting a 9 day workshop. You know,
Mm.
at 9 days, if you're going to end up burning out and disappearing for like an entire month, like I did, Don't do what I did. Host a 1-day workshop
Yes.
instead,
Yes.
or a 3-day workshop instead. But sometimes you've also got to give yourself permission to test those boundaries and see what you're capable of, because once you know that you've done it, you can then peel back. But I understand that not everybody will, take that very first step. It's just for people who are high achieving, they feel like they need to, do more and be more and all of that, meant for more and all of that kind of stuff that goes around the internet rounds, right? And yes, we are all meant for more,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think it's about gently expanding our field of, as you say, like that capacity to hold where we're at right now.
Yeah, because we are so unkind to ourselves, like so much so. So if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice when you started your business, what would that be?
I would say that reach out to people and be part of a community a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Don't hold back. And I actually wish that I had looked into and tapped into more podcasts like this, because it really did, um, stop me from understanding what it is that I needed really right at that time.
Mm.
I think I was so engrossed in just learning all the time without implementing. Um, you're smiling, which tells me that you've probably been on
I
the same
totally
journey
get it.
yourself.
Yes, so
Yeah,
much so. Yeah.
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 And
It's
so,
the art of doing is very hard
oh,
in business
hugely.
because you have like these big dreams and then all of a sudden you get lost in the dream going, well, what's the
Yes.
action to take?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so I think, it'd be both those things. I think, learn, but then implement very, very quickly, and don't be alone, and reach out and listen to podcasts, be part of networking groups. Yeah, surround yourself
Yeah.
with people.
Oh my
Mm.
God. I have loved this conversation so much. I think like as I said to you, as a people pleaser, perfectionist, you name it. Like it so resonates with me, like in so many different things and learning more about myself, learning about especially on like as a business owner,
Yeah.
and even just stepping away from corporate, having that identity shift as well. So thank you so much for sharing your gifts. We're going to pop all the details below of how people can reach out to you, Radhika. Like, I think you're just truly amazing. And it's a real gift that you have and to share this with the world. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me as well. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It just reinforces why I love doing what I do, and, helping people actually untap into their love for what it is that they do and sharing it with the world.
Yeah, so much. Before you go, I'm going to ask you 5 questions so that people can get to know you on a real personal level as well. So, the
Yeah.
first question is, are you a tea or coffee person in the morning?
Oh, definitely a tea person. I like my English
Oh,
breakfast.
Oh, I love that. I love it. I'm a coffee, and everyone who knows me just like do not talk to me unless I've had a coffee in the morning. So if you could like if you had some downtime, would you prefer to sit and read a book or to curl up and watch a movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. Depends on the time of the day. I think if it's later at night, it's definitely a book. But if it's early evening, it's a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Love it. If you were to go to a dream destination, would you prefer to travel by plane or by boat?
Oh, definitely by plane. I'm a
Yeah.
jet setter, me.
I love it. I love it. Like, let's just get there. Let's just start it right now.
Yeah,
I can feel that energy of you.
yeah.
Absolutely. And you're going to host a dinner party and you're allowed to invite one special guest, and that can be from the past or from the present. Who would that special guest be?
Ooh, if it's a celebrity, then because the first person who I thought of, and I'm just going to rattle it off based on what I thought, which was Oprah. I think I would
Oh,
love to have
yes.
Oprah at a dinner party.
Oh my God, that conversation would be
Would be
amazing. Yeah,
amazing.
like please
Exactly.
invite me. Yeah,
It'll have to be a
absolutely.
three-way podcast, right?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's manifest that. Let's do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. And if you could describe yourself in one word, what would that be?
Ooh, courageous. I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love that so much. Absolutely. I think anybody starting a business, like the courage that it takes to do that is immense. And a lot of people don't realize, like, you can sit there and have a dream, but to actually implement it, it takes so much courage. So I can, yeah, definitely.
100%.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely an action taker. I don't know how my mom says she had a really long labor or whatever, but I'm like, how? Because I'm an
Yes.
action taker.
You just need that time and then you just don't stop. So I think, yeah, I can see that with you. Thank you again, beautiful, for being here. Absolutely loved it. And again, for you joining and for everyone watching the show, thank you so much for being here. If you've liked this episode, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, leave your comment below. Radhika, thank you so much for being here, beautiful.
Thank you, Christine. Great being here.
And remember to live life to the fullest every single day. Love and light to you all.